Hello and welcome to this podcast from B2B Marketing. My name is Joel Harrison. I'm founder and editor at large at B2B Marketing. And today we're going to be talking about trust in B2B as part of a new series which we're running. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Andrew Mildren as my guest, who is MD of Edelman Business Marketing for EMEA, which is a global marketing group which has become one of the foremost proponents of thought leadership globally. In part through its publication of its Thought Leadership Impact Report, but also its Trust Barometer, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on. Andrew's CV or resume, depending on which side of the pond you're sitting on, is a who's who of B2B communications agencies. So I'm looking forward to quizzing him about the emergence of thought leadership as a distinct discipline from a PR angle, as well as the trends that he's seeing through the various clients that he works with. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks so much, Joel. It's great to be talking to you today.
Well, thank you for finding the time. So let's just, I think Edelman is a really, really well-known organization in marketing. But let's just, for those of you who aren't aware of it or who perhaps may have some kind of legacy perceptions of what it is and what it does, tell us a little bit more about what it is and its kind of its role in delivering thought leadership expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. Edelman is the biggest, but we also like to think the best integrated communications agency in the world. But particularly when it comes to B2B marketing, we've actually been delivering B2B programs for clients like Shell, Microsoft, Samsung, Mitsubishi for over a decade. And the excellent B2B marketing has, very kindly ranked us as the number one agency in the UK over the last 5 years. So, that's a testament to, the revenue and the expertise that we have in the business. In 2023, we decided to bring together all of the brilliant B2Bers that are working in Edelman around the world under Edelman Business Marketing. And I'm lucky enough to be leading that across Europe, Middle East, and Africa demand. And then I know that we are going to come on to talk about this, but I mean, fundamentally, we see trust as the currency of business. It's what helps you get invited to bid more often. It's what helps you close deals, helps you cross and upsell, helps you charge a better margin for your products and services. Trust is fundamental to kind of how you think about the sales process. And as you alluded to, we've been studying that for a long time, and we think it is absolutely applicable when you're thinking about large enterprise sales.
Okay, so and that is yeah, absolutely something we're going to pick up at later on. And I think it's the synthesis seems to be you've got this background in PR, but actually it's about building brands and both sides of it. And I feel it seems like you're kind of uniquely positioned in having all those skill sets to be able to focus on thought leadership, perhaps in a way that other agencies might not have done, and for historical and skills orientated reasons. So hence you've been at the forefront of this kind of kind of promoting this notion over the kind of last 10 years, I suppose. Is your Trust Barometer report, which has just come out. Conveniently, it landed just in time for Davos. I'm assuming that wasn't a coincidence, was it?
It was very deliberate.
And, I'm guessing that it's no coincidence. I mean, you're an organization that's been helping people develop their brands for 70 years, you said just now. You also have this expertise in thought leadership, and you've been doing this for 25 years. Is that correct? The Trust
Yes, it
Barometer.
is amazingly.
I mean, that's a big commitment in time. So congratulations to the agency on having an idea, owning it, and sticking with it over that period of time. To what extent is your kind of expertise in thought leadership, was there a link between this report cause or consequence of that? Did you get into that because you're doing the trust barometer, or was it the other way around?
I think it's probably a bit of both. I think that, sometimes communications can, feel quite hard to measure. But if you think about trust and you think about, our premise is that trust really is the foundation of kind of progress in society. It impacts, nearly everything we do. It impacts, our perceptions of government, of our employer. It affects, how we perceive, other people and other countries and other groups in society. It's something which is a really fundamental aspect to how society operates. And so, we kicked off the first of the trust barometers, as you say, 25 years ago, at sort of the time when there was the battle in Seattle. There was the campaigns about globalization at the World Trade Organization, and it was done very much to kind of capture that moment. But we realised that it's something that is very timely and very relevant for a whole range of different things that are developed in society. So over the time that we've been running that, we've seen things like the Iraq War, we've seen Brexit, we've obviously had the impact of the pandemic, we've had real concerns around sort of climate change and the evolution of AI. The Trust Barometer has looked at all of those different topics, and it gives you a sense of how people are feeling, whether they feel that governments, NGOs, business, and the media are responding to those challenges in society. So whilst we've kept the longevity of it, and we're known for the Trust Barometer, it's given us a platform that you can actually explore a whole range of different issues. It's very topical to what's going on at the world at a given point. And we also produce a lot of what we call special reports, which dive a bit deeper. So we have a Trust at Work report that looks at people's perceptions of their working lives. We have a Trust in Innovation report. So it gives you a way of exploring those issues, in a number of different lenses.
Okay, and I think and that's really helpful. And it feels to me like you tell me if this is right or wrong. It's not obviously it's not about thought leadership specifically, but it's very germane to the topic, and it helps you kind of frame the environment which people within which businesses are communicating with their customers. So it's very helpful in kind of setting out your credentials and also defining the overall landscape. And as you say, you've gone through. So I'm glad I've got that right in how you align with that, how it's perceived within the value that it provides to the organisation. You talked about the different political and socioeconomic events that happen in the duration of that 25 years, some kind of epochal activities there. Tell us about this year, what you found this year, because I mean it's you know. It's not necessarily the cheeriest reading in the world, is it? Some of the conclusions that come from that. Am I being overly pessimistic there?
I think you're absolutely right. What we've seen over the last year is, there has been a lot of elections around the world. There has been political change. There is political polarization. We've seen conflict around the world. We've seen a lot of uncertainty and kind of instability. There is nervousness around the economy from an individual level. I think people are concerned about the impact of technology. Will AI take my job? There is a lot of factors that kind of come together, and the key theme for this year's study is, or the key trend is around this widespread sense of grievance and frustration amongst different groups in society, and the feeling that governments, NGOs, businesses, media, the feeling that these things aren't being addressed. So, as you say, it does make for some quite stark reading. What it also does, though, is really have a call to action in terms of encouraging those different institutions to come together to try and address these things. There is a really interesting role there for business, because actually business is seen as one of the most trusted voices. And I think that's because people spend so much of their time at work, they spend time with their colleagues. It is a big part of their life. And a lot of the information they receive comes through a lens of, their employer, and it is an element of stability in their lives. So I think there is a piece there that actually companies can play quite a key role in terms of helping people feel more secure economically, helping them with skills, with training for the future, helping them understand some of the change that's going on. So for those businesses that actually take the initiative and really think actively about that, there probably is a great opportunity there for them to really build trust amongst a whole range of audiences.
I think that was fascinating, and it's very well expressed. The fact that actually people trust businesses more than they trust government and more than they trust the media, is that has worrying implications. But if we just try and put those aside for a moment, if you think about actually the opportunity and the need, to be fair, there's a societal responsibility, I think, that businesses had to behave responsibly. But then the flip side, and I would believe that if you behave responsibly, then you'll benefit the rewards from that. From this. So there is a positive message to take from this, and I think that was absolutely fascinating. I was slightly concerned as a journalist that the media was denigrated so badly. But I guess this is a study that goes across the whole world, right? So you've got a very what you're describing as journalism is a very, very broad church, and it's I guess it's the business journalist or media or business trade publications, probably a very small part of that, and probably not definitive of what that is. I'm desperately trying to dig my profession out of the hole here.
Yes, and it is a global study, and clearly media operate in very different ways around the world and different perceptions. And as you say, I think also this is asking um, about the public's perceptions. Um, I think also people would also recognise that there is an important role that media play in helping people understand these issues, in fact checking, in objectivity. And it's interesting also when you look at sort of social media and perhaps recent comments from different social platforms. I think people do still look to media as having more authority, more credibility, a better chance of being a valued source and being a trusted source.
And I think but what it does beautifully for the purpose of this conversation is define the challenge around trust. And I guess what I wanted to do now is to switch on to talking about thought leadership in B2B marketing, with the obvious implication that thought leadership is a means to address this gap in trust which exists to a greater or lesser extent. How do you think the discipline or the role, the opportunity of thought leadership in B2B has changed in perhaps the last 5 years, and what's driving that?
Um, so I think thought leadership is probably one of the most widely used and probably misunderstood phrases in business. Um, how many times has someone, in a company, often a person that's not involved in marketing, said, "Oh, we could get some great thought leadership on that," or you've had a tap on the shoulder and someone said, "Yeah, the CEO really wants to talk about this. Can you just write a thought leadership article on this?" Now, there is a reality that those things will probably always be a part and parcel of marketing communication professionals' life, and are things that will always be done in from a business point of view. But I think what we've tried to do through the Thought Leadership Impact Study is really unpack, what are the attributes of the most effective thought leadership? How can organizations think about that thought leadership through their organization, and how can they think about measuring and proving the value of that? And the Thought Leadership Impact Study, we do it each year. We do it in partnership with LinkedIn. We speak to around 3,500 business decision makers and kind of producers of content across 7 markets and a range of different sectors. And based on that research, there are a number of attributes that we've extracted that we think combine to make the most effective and impactful thought leadership. And we describe this as the thought leadership flywheel, in that if you get all 6 of these elements working well, then it should be a virtuous circle, and it really should drive the value of your business. So the first of those is around finding the white space. This is about finding new and different angles, the unexpected perspective on a story. It's being bolder and more imaginative in the storytelling. What we do sometimes find with thought leadership is that it can feel like a bit of an aggregation of all the things that are being discussed in an industry at the moment, or it validates current opinions. But when it's done really well, it is really trying to kind of uncover that white space and that different perspective. There's a piece around relevance. Often you find thought leadership it falls into the kind of the everything for everyone trap. So, you're trying to cover multiple industries, multiple markets, lots and lots of different topics. And actually, where some of the best work comes out is when it really focuses on a real and meaningful kind of customer need, and it goes deep into that, and that there is it really, helps you unpack a particular topic. And so I think with that, going back to your point earlier about the journalistic profession, we would absolutely say, the best thought leadership applies that journalistic lens in terms of trying to think about the story, the focus of that, and how do you really make that relevant. There is a piece around vision and that unique perspective, but I think also those examples I mentioned earlier with DP World and Halion are good examples of where there is, a purpose and an action and a behavior change that's inherent in the thought leadership, which I think makes that much more powerful. Surprise, surprise, trust is in there, but I think that can be embodied in a number of ways. Trust can be around bringing in respected voices, different perspectives. A challenge with thought leadership can sometimes be it feels very one-dimensional, or it's very skewed by the company that's producing it. But actually, when you're bringing in different voices and different attitudes to that, that creates a lot more insight and a lot more, different perspectives. We also find that sometimes thought leadership tends to get be fairly anonymous, but actually it's much better when it's attributed to an individual, when you're really hearing from the people behind it, but not just execs, but also scientists, researchers, people that are out in the field doing complicated, difficult things that really add, the trust and the depth to this. There is certainly something around brevity, and I guess we may come on to talk about formats and different ways of packaging thought leadership, but trying to think about how, yes, you can deliver the robust insight, but also that you do that in a way that is digestible and also which is telling very kind of human stories. And then the final piece is around attribution, and I've kind of teased this already, but fundamentally we do think that thought leadership plays a valuable role right through the business decision making process. And if you're producing this content, it is valuable material that you could be using in your sales enablement, giving to your sales team. It could be valuable for your partners and your partner marketing. It's something that could fuel, interesting activity from an account-based marketing point of view. It really, when organizations start thinking about it in that context, you're going to get far more value from the investment, but also you're going to be producing more interesting stuff that people will genuinely want to read and want to engage with.
Okay, so there's a huge wealth in what you've just said there. So just to recap from the beginning, so you, as well as having the Trust Barometer, you also have the thought leadership piece as well. So a wealth of your own thought leadership to just talk about thought leadership over the course of the year. If I were a cynic, I'd say you're showing off, but as an organisation, but and then so and that came out. I think you said April, May last year. Is that correct? And so we.
So the 2024 study, I think, came out at the turn of the year last year, and then
Okay.
our next one will be coming out in April, May this year.
Great. Okay. And when that comes up, we will return to this and we'll talk about it in detail. So, but just recap those 6 points, just to be in a pithy way. Can you can just list them 1 to 6?
Absolutely. So finding the white space,
Right.
relevance, vision, trust, brevity, and attribution.
Okay. Okay. That's great. So great. So what I'm taking from this and conversations I had with other people who are providing thought leadership, it feels to me like what's happening at a kind of macro levels that there is a lot more clarity in leadership about what good looks like. We are, as you said, it's a term that's handily ill-defined historically. So people are able to band it around and call it whatever they want to. And that can mean yes, there's a huge canon of things, but I feel like what you are doing and other players in this space who are really doubled down on this one are trying to go, no, this is what it is and this is what good is. And so we're able then hence to be able to kind of separate what's potentially content marketing, good content marketing, or even bad content marketing from actual thought leadership. You'd agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so we're maturing. It's becoming more sophisticated. At the same time, I think what you've said before on a more global level around there's a trust issue at a kind of global level in terms of the macroeconomic social, political aspect. But I would you agree that there's an element of that which draws down into business communications? I mean, I feel that particularly with AI, we have a wealth of content coming out there, so there's a lot more chaff. And that amount of chaff is growing. The wheat is harder to discern. That's kind of why you're investing in providing this guidance about what good looks like.
Absolutely. There is as part of the thought leadership study, a few years ago, we do speak to kind of a number of different senior executives about it, and one of them described there being a tsunami of content and business content that's coming at business leaders, and that was a little while ago before AI has taken on the prevalence that it has, and I think that you're right that whilst AI is an incredibly powerful, valuable, and useful tool for marketeers and for those producing thought leadership. The risk is that it can also make it, a lot easier to churn out crap a lot faster, and then means that for what will really stand out is the content that kind of meets some of those attributes that we talked about, but also I think that's where the creativity, the ability to really earn the right to busy business people's lives becomes important. And so thinking about how that comes to life, how that looks creatively, the ways that you gather the information, the way that you execute that campaign, that also plays a very, very important part in making sure that what you do cuts through and is genuinely useful to the audience.
Yeah, I guess the answer is because you could be somebody who's sitting there who's producing good quality content marketing and go, well, why can't I call this thought leadership? And I guess the answer, again, tell me if I'm wrong, Andrew, is that, well, actually thought leadership is more powerful, and if you do it right, you have more to gain from doing it right rather than doing perhaps stuff which is a bit more prosaic.
Yes, and I think that there are certain there are components of kind of what thought leadership does particularly well, and perhaps better than other forms of marketing or content marketing. For example, um, it is probably one of the best means of explaining complex topics, unpacking complex issues, discussing that in a way that is going to be engaging and relevant. um, it is the natural home for problem solving, for new approaches, for different ideas. You have a lot of business leaders at the moment who are facing uncertainty, who are looking for new ideas, new suggestions, and different approaches, and thought leadership is a very good way of showing that. It's also a great way of championing your talent, your people, their smart thinking, their ability to solve a problem for a particular customer, and it gives you a great platform for doing that. Um, so you can see that particularly when you start thinking about thought leadership compared to other aspects of marketing, it does become a vehicle that is particularly powerful in a number of ways. And one of the things that we found in the thought leadership study is that a lot of the uh, business leaders that we spoke to said that they find thought leadership a much better way of evaluating a company's quality, its competence, compared to perhaps more traditional marketing materials or advertising.
Okay, that's really helpful. I'm just thinking about. I mean, in the prep for this, I asked you about what what thought leadership programs get wrong, but I guess we kind of covered a lot of that going forward. I think one of the things we also wanted to pick up though was the kind of its role, and you're very keen to stress that you see it as having a role at every stage of the buyer journey. Um, is it a good assumption though that there is a if you're going to do that, you've got to set your stall out from the beginning. You've got to have a kind of a top of funnel brand kind of perspective around it. You can't just if you're just leaping into some tactics and more demand type activity, less strategic, perhaps more trying to convince people, trying to kind of refine their your place in that a shortlist, as you might do further down a buying journey, you're going to miss out on that stuff. So you've got to start from the top with something which is strategic and has a big picture. Is that fair? Is that a kind of a quantifiable aspect of great thought leadership?
It is, and I think that, I mean, actually, as a way of illustrating that, we've talked a bit about the Edelman Trust Barometer. From our own point of view, as a platform for us, yes, we do that, and we talk about at a high level about um, societal views of trust and so on. But then that is woven through in all that we do for clients. So it's an intrinsic part of our strategy and planning and kind of creative development process. It's something that we weave into the product development. So we have what we call Trust Stream, which is uses AI to analyze the trust insights so that we can help companies predict and make smarter decisions around how different activities or different messaging may land. So I think if it's something that is woven through what an organization does, then clearly, it has the substance, it has the depth behind it. I also think for marketers, let's face it, budgets are tight. There is that terrifying phrase, which everyone fears, of do more with less. And so if you're faced with that, you have to think about, well, look, where can I bring the alignment? Where can I bring the integration? Where can I make the efficiency? And we would argue that some of the best thought leadership platforms enable you to do that in a way where you can think about that through your marketing mix, through one overall platform, through an overall concept, but give yourself multiple ways of bringing that to life and executing it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think sometimes organizations can have quite disparate streams, and that's probably where perhaps some of the lack of consistency, the duplication, the inefficiency can occur.
So rationalization and focus, and I guess I mean the expression I liked I heard a few years ago was the big long idea, right? You're not it is not a tactical deployment. This is a strategic thing which you're making a bet on, and it does involve the CEO and senior people, and it provides them with a bit of fame. And let's face it, vanity should inevitably plays a role in B2B marketing somewhere down the line. And if you can get this tap into the CEO's vanity, when why on earth not? I guess it's also humanizing B2B by surfacing these people to your worked example, you've launched this barometer at Davos. So you're clearly setting your stall out and seeking to engage senior people of your customers there. So, and then it'll, as you said, it'll filter all the way through. But I guess picking up on part of what you said there, there's the reason people might not do this. Perhaps thought leadership is to the level of kind of excellence that you and others are prescribing, is that it is complex and it is expensive and it's not easy. Is that fair?
Um, it can be. I mean, certainly we've, as part of the thought leadership study, we do ask about, what are some of the barriers and what are some of the challenges for companies in being able to achieve this. And things that people cite include, having sufficient resource, having access to the right kind of talent, being able to kind of get the investment from the business. So yes, those things are important. But what we've also done, and which I think could be helpful for marketers as they're trying to, plan for the coming year, as they're trying to look at, lobbying for budgets, is you can see a double-digit difference between the producers of higher quality thought leadership and lower quality thought leadership. So by that, I mean improvements not only in the brand impact in terms of reputation, in terms of trust, things like that, but also actually on sales impact. So we can highlight double digit differences around the ability for an organization to use thought leadership to break into new markets, to define new categories, to cross and upsell products and services, to help them reach new and different potential buyers. So when you think about it in that lens, yes, you could put more investment into doing that, but there are significant double-digit differences in the value and the return that you will get
So
from doing that.
I mean, it's a confident play, right? It's a bold play, it's a confident play, but it does feel like, I mean, I'm a little bit biased because I've drunk the Kool-Aid, but I think that it's something which you can play across all levels. But to your point, though, beyond to demonstrate that, so the metrics for sales for thought leadership success are across the full funnel, right? You're not just going to say, "Oh, we've improved brand. That's it. Thank you very much. Job done. I'm going to walk away." You're not just going to say which brand, but hey, we can show some leads. We're also going to talk about conversions and upsells and all of those kind of things. Well, that's what you're striving for with your clients. Is that universal, or is it that's great, but some people are kind of show it some of the way along.
That's certainly what we're striving for. One of the most alarming figures, though, that came through in our most recent thought leadership report is that 1 in 5 companies admit that they don't have any process in place for measuring the effectiveness of thought leadership, and only 30% can link sales leads back to specific pieces of content. So that is quite alarming, and that probably goes to the heart of why sometimes it can be hard to make the case for thought leadership, or why it feels more intangible, because if you're not able to really prove that value, if you're not thinking it through, if you're not starting when you develop a thought leadership campaign of thinking what is our end goal and what is the commercial metric we're trying to drive, then yes, it is going to be hard to prove, and yes, it will start feeling more abstract, and you will end up focusing mainly on, am I driving awareness, am I driving traffic, which is good, but is only part of the equation.
Yeah, okay, and that's really good to understand, and it's good to see again that becoming despite the fact you come from a PR background, which might suggest that you, as Edelman, have you moved on from there, that's your heartland. You're also seeing the value and understanding that's where B2B marketing needs to be to showing success in order to achieve what they need to do. So, okay, so I think we've covered most of the questions I was going to ask here, albeit in a slightly different format than I was intending potentially, but that's the nature of these conversations. Do you think, Andrew, that thought leadership is right for every organization doing B2B marketing?
You probably would expect me to say this, but yes, I do. But the way I would frame this is, um, if you think about your everyday working life, you want to work with smart people who have good ideas, who are, interesting and good company to work with. I would say that thought leadership is the best means of showing that at scale for your business as a whole. Um, I think it is a great vehicle for showcasing your talent, your people's expertise. It's a way of showing the quality of their thinking. And that really is what people are looking for when they're thinking about business, when they're thinking about who do I employ, when they're thinking about who do I choose for this particular contract. We pitch on a regular basis for clients, and fundamentally, that's what the clients are evaluating. Do I want to work with these people? Do they seem smart? Do we have the right chemistry? And I think thought leadership actually does give you a means of doing that. Now, obviously, that can scale depending on your size and your type of organization. Um, but I do think it's something that actually can add value for a business of any size.
And whatever you're selling in whatever category.
I would have said so, yes.
Even where you have something that's more of a commoditized product, you're still looking to be able to talk about that at a brand level. You still can have that dialogue.
Well, I would say, I think in that instance, it's even more important because you can't differentiate on the product. You have to find a means of um, adding value, showcasing something over and above the product in itself. And actually, one of the clients I work with, they are in a fairly undifferentiated market, but they are able to command more of a premium for the products that they offer because they're focused on talking about the value adds, the insights, the technologies and services that they offer that sit above the core product in itself. So if you'll find yourself in that highly commoditized market, I think it's probably even more important you're thinking about that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's Andrew. I think I could talk about this for a lot longer, but I think we've probably good time to place to leave it. There's so much information you got available via the Trust Barometer and also the Thought Leadership Index. So you can download that. I'll put a link in there. Thanks for your time today, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been great talking to you. Thanks a lot, Joel.
Great stuff. And you're interested in this topic around trust and thought leadership and all aspects that relate to that, which, as you can see, does tend to spin off in every single direction. Please subscribe or tune in for more. We'll be doing lots more content on this basis in the coming weeks. Thanks for your time today.